Practical Vedanta Lectures of Swami Vivekananda from the second volume of Complete Works of Swami Vivekananda. Fourth lecture delivered in London on 18th November 1896. Swamiji starts the lecture by saying that in previous lectures we have been discussing the universal aspect of reality, and now we will see what Vedanta says about the particular aspect, namely the individual soul. The argument for limited yet perfect individual soul is that of self-identity. I am the same I despite changes occurring to the body. Views of ancient Vedantists, that is dualists. On the other hand, Buddhists say that it is unnecessary to assume unchanging soul behind changing phenomena, and even if such a soul exists, it is impossible to grasp it in any way. Swamiji points out that the same discussion you will find at the present time going on in Europe between the religionists and the idealists on the one side and the modern positivists and agnostics on the other. One set believing there is something which does not change, of whom the latest representative is your Herbert Spencer, that we catch a glimpse of something which is unchangeable, and the other is represented by modern Comtists and modern agnostics. Those of you who were interested a few years ago in the discussions between Herbert Spencer and Frederick Harrison might have noticed that it was the same old difficulty, the one party standing for a substance behind the changeful and the other party denying the necessity for such an assumption. Then Swamiji shows that the argument of existence based on unchanging I in the midst of changing action is weak, as nobody can make the distinction between these two in their minds, though they may parrot the words. The other argument of existence based on memory is also very weak. Loss of memory would mean loss of self. This is contrary to actual experience. Thus, it cannot be proved that there is an unchanging limited individual soul to which changing qualities are attached. Buddhists' argument is a bit stronger than this. Soul is a bundle of qualities called sensations and feelings, which are constantly changing. Swamiji says, the Advaitist theory of the soul reconciles both these positions. The position of the Advaitist is that it is true that we cannot think of the substance as separate from the qualities. We cannot think of change and not change at the same time. It would be impossible. But the very thing which is the substance is the quality. Substance and quality are not two things. It is the unchangeable that is appearing as the changeable. When I think of myself as the body, I am only a body. It is meaningless to say I am something else. And when I think of myself as the soul, the body vanishes, and the perception of the body does not remain. None can get the perception of the self without his perception of the body having vanished. None can get perception of the substance without his perception of the qualities having vanished. One appearing as many gives rise to cause-effect relationship and evolution idea. We are immortal and unchangeable as whole, but we wish to be such as parts of the whole. We can characterize the limited soul as an individual continuously expanding towards infinite individual. Swamiji says, now by getting rid of the dualistic conception that in the midst of all these changes there is something that does not change, and taking the most modern of conception, that of evolution, we find that the I is a continuously changing, expanding entity. If it be true that man is the evolution of a mollusk, the mollusk individual is the same as the man, only it has to become expanded a great deal. From mollusk to man, it has been a continuous expansion towards infinity. Therefore, the limited soul can be styled an individual which is continuously expanding towards the infinite individual. One major difference between Buddhist system and Vedanta was that while Advaita tried to harmonize the preceding systems of thought and allowed them the gradual evolution towards the highest, Buddhists had neither the faculty nor perception for this, and hence rejected all other thought systems as useless and harmful. Advaita accepts all preceding thought systems, not in a patronizing way, but as true manifestations of the same truth. Rejection of them by the Buddhism has not been useful, rather it has been harmful for humanity. Swamiji says, with blessing and not with cursing should be preserved all these various steps through which humanity has to pass. Therefore, all these dualistic systems have never been rejected or thrown out, but have been kept intact in the Vedanta. and the dualistic conception of an individual soul, limited yet complete in itself, finds its place in the Vedanta. From dualist standpoint, human being will necessarily be seen as composed of body and soul. Body is gross and subtle, while soul is described variously. But it is agreed that soul is eternal, blessed, and full of potential power and possibilities. The soul travels to various spheres of existence, and liberation consists of going to highest heaven and staying with God. Advaitists reject this idea of body and say that only bodilessness and thoughtlessness can be infinite and our real goal. They say infinity is our real nature and we are already that. We should not judge others by our standards. If some people have no taste for little pleasures of this or any other world and wish to give it up, then we should not bind them with our ideas. For elucidating this point, Swamiji narrates the story he had read. He says, I once read a story about some ships that were caught in a cyclone in the South Sea Islands, and there was a picture of it in the Illustrated London News. All of them were wrecked except one English vessel, which weathered the storm. The picture showed the men who were going to be drowned standing on the decks and cheering the people who were sailing through the storm. Be brave and generous like that. Do not drag others down to where you are. Then Swamiji points out selfishness and unselfishness in the light of above discussion. He says, clinging on to little enjoyments and to desire the continuation and repetition of this state of things is utter selfishness. I would like to see moral men like Gautam Buddha, who did not believe in a personal God or a personal soul, never asked about them, but was a perfect agnostic, and yet was ready to lay down his life for anyone, and worked all his life for the good of all, and thought only of the good of all. That race, which is bound down to itself, has been the most cruel and the most wicked in the whole world. There has not been a religion that has clung to this dualism more than that founded by the Prophet of Arabia, and there has not been a religion which has shed so much blood and been so cruel to other men. In the Quran, there is the doctrine that a man who does not believe these teachings should be killed. It is a mercy to kill him. Think of the bloodshed there has been in consequence of such beliefs. In the religion of Christ, there was little of crudeness. There is very little difference between the pure religion of Christ and that of the Vedanta. Then Swamiji boldly points out that, like Islam, later Christianity too degraded into crudeness of holding on to limited I, that is selfishness, even after death, going to heaven or hell. He says, the watchword of all well-being, of all moral good is not I, but thou. Who cares whether there is a heaven or a hell? Who cares if there is a soul or not? Who cares if there is an unchangeable or not? Here is the world, and it is full of misery. Go out into it as Buddha did and struggle to lessen it, or die in the attempt. Forget yourself. This is the first lesson to be learnt. Whether you are a theist or an atheist, whether you are an agnostic or a Vedantist, a Christian or a Mohammedan. The one lesson obvious to all is the destruction of the little self and the building up of the real self. Throughout creation, two forces are always working side by side, selfishness and unselfishness, acquisition and renunciation. The motive power for whole universe is love, that is unselfishness and renunciation, while evil, that is selfishness and acquisition, is only the limitation and perversion of unselfishness, love. Advaita does not admit two causes of the universe. To get morality and ethics, we should not lower our metaphysical ideal. Swamiji says, the Vedantist says the cause of all that is apparently evil is the limitation of the unlimited. The love which gets limited into little channels and seems to be evil eventually comes out at the other end and manifests itself as God. The Vedanta also says that the cause of all this apparent evil is in ourselves. Do not blame any supernatural being, neither be hopeless and despondent, nor think we are in a place from which we can never escape unless someone comes and lends us a helping hand. That cannot be, says the Vedanta. Our essential nature being good and love, we should not mop over mistakes but should know that eventually the real will prevail. Brooding over sin and weakness is not the solution. Always think of the God within you, realize your real nature, and then teach it to all as it is their real nature too. Swamiji says, this is the one prayer. to remember our true nature, the God who is always within us, thinking of it always as infinite, almighty, ever good, ever beneficent, selfless, bereft of all limitations. And because that nature is selfless, it is strong and fearless. For only to selfishness comes fear. He who has nothing to desire for himself, whom does he fear? And what can frighten him? What fear has death for him? What fear has evil for him? And our only work is to arouse this knowledge in our fellow beings. We see that they too are the same pure self, only they do not know it. We must teach them, we must help them to rouse up their infinite nature. Truth is the nature of all souls. Who can lay any special claim to it? But it has to be made practical, to be made simple, for the highest truths are always simple, so that it may penetrate every pore of human society and become the property of the highest intellects and the commonest minds, of the man, woman, and child at the same time. Let us try to make things simpler and bring about the golden days when every man will be a worshipper and the reality in every man will be the object of worship. Thanks for watching. Om Arunachala Shiva. Om Tat Sat.